Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name's Brian if you're new around here, but if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back, you magnificent sexy beast. That's what you get for subscribing, by the way. Free compliments at the start of these videos. Now, today's video is inspired by a question that we got last night on stream. How do you go about gearing up in this game? And so I wanted to put this guide together for you to really kind of walk you through the thought process. What is gearing? How should you think of stats, perks, gear score, and how I approach it. Now, this is just my perspective and how I've chosen to play this game, both as leveling and then also when you hit level 60, some of that is going to change. And I want to give you guys a couple tips, a couple tricks that I've developed over this last year in hopes that it can help make your experience even better. Now, after this video, if you guys have any questions, if you need anything with New World, sound off in the comments below. I'm here to hopefully help. And if you want to go and get involved with this community, check out the Discord. We've got a great and growing New World community. You don't even need to be on our server, but if you want to be, at some point, that's going to open up because we are currently locked on Orofina right now, but I'm sure that's going to change at some point. But welcome in everybody and welcome to my New World channel. Let's get you the information. Let's not waste any time and let's have some fun today. So first things first, the question was, how do you gear up? When do you prioritize gear score? When do you prioritize stats? How do you manage all of this? And so I wanted to show you guys today some thought processes. I'm going to show you today how what I call the poor man's loadout system. That's going to be something that I think will be really valuable for you until we actually get loadouts in this game. But this is a really good way of showing that. And then talk about when to save, when to salvage. And if you guys haven't seen the salvaging system, I'll kind of walk you through that here as well. So hopefully this video is valuable. You guys can let me know. Anyhow, first and foremost, apparently my character wants to turn to the back. Let's see if we can actually get that done right. There he goes. He does a full spin. You know what? There's occasionally a bug or two in this game. All right. So first things first, I got a bunch of gear by playing through the Brimstone Sands update. It is truly an incredible update. And if you're watching this video and trying to decide if you should return or if you should pick it up, the answer is absolutely yes. In fact, I'm planning on doing a giveaway here, in-game currency on the channel pretty soon. So keep it locked here for more of that. But we've got some gear. I'm just going to go through it. You can see here, whenever you hover over a piece of gear, like it naturally compares to what you currently have. But let's talk about what we see here on the screen with the gear itself. I'll use this as a good example. First and foremost, you see obviously the gear score being less, but you see armor rating and both for elemental and physical with green arrows. And then you see a stat, and then being that this is green, not a lot of perks. Not a lot of things to go off of there. Maybe we go down into something purple, epic in this regards. This is where you're going to start to see perks that are being applied. You can also see various different stats, and then you still see your armor rating, both for elemental and for physical. So this is where the decisions are going to come heavily into play. And the first thing I want to say is that this is a game where you can be free to make mistakes, especially as you level. If you ever have a question in mind, hold down the L key and then click the item. It's going to put a lock symbol on this for you. This is going to just help if you're just curious. If you're like, well, is this really a good piece of gear for what I'm going for? Maybe I want to hold on to it for a little bit. Feel free to lock those things because we're going to talk about storage and your loadouts here in just a second. But note that that is one key feature that you have available. But you can see here, obviously, I'm rocking legendary. I get more perks. I have different stats, and I'm going to probably choose, in this case, the focus and the dexterity. Now, my prioritization is going to be one of twofold. I'm going to say stats are clearly more important, especially as you level, but there's going to be a balance because we're not just talking about like your strength, your dexterity, your focus. Like we're not going to be talking about your main stats all the time. You're going to also be looking at your armor rating. My personal recommendation for anybody new stepping into this game is to focus in on survivability first and foremost. If you think of downtime as getting killed, having to respawn, having to run, despite the map having been updated with many new fast travel points and getting around this game is as easy as it could ever be right now. Downtime, it's still downtime. And so we want to try to avoid that at as much as possible. So when it comes down to your stats, going into your attributes, if you're struggling, putting things into constitution can help out dramatically. And here's the other key piece to this is that when you start looking at it, and don't use this as a build guide, guys, this is just me being ridiculous as I play through life staff and great sword and whatnot. So these stats are clearly not for recommendation, but you start to want to try and put points into these various different stat allocations to where you can start hitting these milestones because that's where you're going to get the best benefit. Increase max health by 10% of your physical armor, for example. So if you're really struggling, physical physical armor and some constitution is going to help really give you an oomph in terms of your survivability. Obviously, carrying potions is going to be key, but think about that aspect. Now, you can do stats that are also driven off of food. I don't know if I actually have any really good food on me right now, but you can see here various different foods can actually have also increased stat benefits. So pay attention to the food you can use, food to kind of supplement, especially if you're maybe missing out on a piece of gear. Food can really come into play. So you can see attribute food that I have, focus and strength. You can see intelligence, like all kinds of stuff. You can always just check the market, or as a great recommendation, you guys haven't been using the site, a New World database. I'll include a link in the description if you guys want to go check them out. They'll have all kinds of resources and things like that if you're looking for specific pieces of gear. But that's what I want to kind of point you to. So you start looking at that aspect. Now, a couple other things that I want you to consider, especially as we talk about the gear itself. Now, I am been and primarily a healer in this game, but I didn't start off as a healer. I actually started off with increasing my armor rating to as much as humanly possible. And the reason why I want that aspect is so that my survivability was great. I had a really great leveling experience, because you might find yourself solo from time to time, but if you find yourself in a group, you can start to really kind of change some of these armor ratings and some of these stats. But I would personally say, focus in on that armor rating, especially if you're going to get to 100 constitution, because then you're going to take advantage of that 10%. That's priority one, right? We're not even talking gear score, etc. We're literally talking about your armor rating and how that then applies to the stats. Now, whatever weapon you're using, if you haven't been paying attention under weapon mastery, a new cool thing that they've added in everybody's expertise level to the gear score. So that's a really beautiful thing that you can see here. But what I would recommend is that when it comes down to your attributes, look at the various different weapons that benefit from the stat. We just had the great sword added. Great sword gets 80% of strength or 80% of dexterity. So they have that evened out. And you can see here, whatever weapon you're using is going to have this nice little beautiful outline. So it says, hey, you got this weapon, and it's benefiting right now from dexterity. And again, also always check your various milestones, so that way you're maximizing your skills together. And so that is something to point you to. And then once you kind of have that within your stats, that's going to then bring you back into your gear. Now, I again recommend armor, and then you focus in on the various different like attribute points. And then you start to talk about, as kind of another priority, gear score, kind of, right? Like gear score represents the odds, obviously, of getting better. And it's a very easy number to look at, but look at your armor, look at your stats, and then essentially kind of your perks. Now, there's a lot of different perks in this game. Now, this piece of gear that we're going to have up on screen right now has an empty gym slot. That's a good idea to be able to slot in gyms, but I wouldn't waste a lot of money while you're leveling on that aspect. But if you do get a gym, might as well use it. There's a lot of gyms that do a lot of different great things. I don't want to cover that in this video for you. Physical aversion, you take 3.8% less damage from ranged physical attacks. And then this also has refreshing, reduces max cooldowns by 2.8%. So all of a sudden, as you start adding onto those perks, that perk might, and I say might, make the difference in how you equip it, but it most likely, especially as you level, I would just kind of play with whatever feels the most natural. Now, if you get some named items as you're leveling, you might end up using those for a lot longer, but don't let a gear score end up driving you off of a really good piece of gear. But if you're, again, ever kind of curious, just go ahead and hit the L key and lock it down. But anyway, hopefully that helps. Also, like New World Database has a whole listing of various different perks. You can actually search for various things like on the markets. Now, if you're just out playing and you're not seeing the gear that you want to drop, and there's something you really need, you feel like it would actually benefit you, I'd highly encourage you to use the trading system in the markets. Now, if you haven't seen this little button up here in the upper left-hand corner, I would probably say can equip, can afford, just as a way of kind of keeping things a little bit cleaner for you. But then you can go in here, and within that, you can set kind of a gear score range if you need. But you're like, let's say you want to focus in on strength, you want to make it single attribute, and then you want to start adding in the various different perks. The perks are listed in game. You can see exactly everything that's listed there. In fact, you can kind of search. Let's say here, blessed. I like blessed. Blessed is a great healing bonus, for example. And let's say you want to find something blessed. Now, this is a weird search. We'll see if anything actually comes out of it. And it did. We got some items itself. So now I'm looking for strength attributes with a blessed, perk on it. Keen is also a really great perk as well. And this is going to give you some extra flexibility, but you can clearly see some prices can fluctuate. And that's why I've always said gold in this game is also power. It's one of the reasons why the end game actually begins at level 1, because everything you're doing in this game is giving you power. It's giving you money. It's setting you up to actually be able to participate in the markets. But note, you can use this great tool to really try to narrow down things that you are specifically looking for. This is great for level 60 players, but even as you're leveling, if you find that like a piece of gear just isn't keeping up, you're not getting the drop that you want, you really want to stick with maybe a greatsword or any of the weapons, you can actually go ahead and focus in on what you're specifically looking for to better use that. So use the markets, check out that feature, so that way you can actually, you're not wasting so much time trying to find the right piece of gear, because at the end of the day, especially as you level, it's going to be replaced, I think, and hopefully pretty quickly. Now, beyond that, when we start talking about the end game itself, the end game begins at level 1. You're going to hear me continually repeat that over, but when you hit level 60, gearing takes on a whole new life, and that's a part of the expertise system. If you guys haven't seen, I have an expertise leveling guide on this channel. Just check the player guide section and it will walk you through the whole process. It is fairly simple, fairly straightforward, and it is also incredibly relaxed. You really get to choose to do the stuff that you want to do in this game without having to feel pressure to do it all. And honestly, at the end of the day, I never really feel pressured to even really worry about that aspect. So just play the game the way you want to play and you're going to have a really good time with it. But I talked to you at the start of this video about loadout management and kind of a poor man's loadout system. So let me show you that now. All right. So in New World, all the various storage sheds are in fact actually linked together. You can easily jump between any of the storage sheds that you need. And one of the nice things that they've added is they'll show you the actual weight of what's going on in that particular storage shed. So you know that you've got space in an item stored in one, or you might not have anything. Like in this case, I don't have anything stored over at Cleves Point. Now here's the whole thing. Here's how I kind of put this together. First and foremost, let me go ahead and let's just say Cleves Point is now going to be my Fisher build, my Fisher loadout. So I'm just going to drag and drop all my fishing gear into Cleves Point, and now that is a loadout. Like I said, this is the poor man's solution until you have need of it. And so ultimately, if I want to go fishing, I just need to go pull up Cleves Point and I can go ahead and add it all back in, and then I can equip it and manage it that way. So use your storage sheds, especially the ones that you really maybe aren't using that much, as a way to store any kind of loadout, any kind of build, or maybe any kind of gear that you want to eventually like revisit to see if that's actually a really good piece, because your build might change 1,000 times as you're leveling. Your build might change 1,000 times tomorrow. It really just depends on what your needs are. And that now almost brings us to the end of this video. If you made it all the way to this point before we talk about our last subject and you want more content, check out the Epic Loot Radio podcast that I run. We film it live over on Ginger Prime, but you can always subscribe to the MP3 audio format. And we got a lot of really great guests. In fact, we just had Baggins on. I've got Noble coming up next. We're going to talk about video games, MMOs, New World, all this really great stuff. Check out the link in the description if you want more information about the podcast. But finally, let's talk about salvaging. Now, let's say you've spent some time and you've gone through your inventory and you've locked the things that you want. So I'm going to lock my legendaries because I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a safe bet. What you can start to do is you can start to salvage. Now, if you look at it, you can hold C and then you can just press salvage. It's going to pop up, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Now, if you hit Control C, you can actually just quick salvage. That's where locking comes into place. Having a lock on items that you want will keep you from getting rid of them. And so this gives you the ability to just mass salvage a multitude of items, stacks of items if needed. And as it continues to go down the list, you eventually run almost the ability to start actually pulling in perfect salvages. You're going to get repair parts, you're going to get gold, you're going to get so many things that you ultimately need. Now, your repair parts are going to cap out at 2,000. I would highly encourage you check out the engineering tool set. That's a way that you can level things up and continue to give yourself repair kits. That way you don't have to use so many repair parts. But if you ever need to repair your gear, just click repair all and it's going to handle that for you. And so that way you're always in tip-top shape when playing New World. Guys, those are my tips. That's my tricks. And I wanted to give you one more and I completely spaced on it. So I do apologize. If you're ever needing anything, let's say you were looking for that fishing gear, you can use the search feature to actually just really get to the items as quickly as possible. So be sure this works on your town storage boards, this works in your inventory, and you have a couple different sorting options as well. If you want to sort by weight, if you want to sort by newest to oldest, if you want to sort by gear score high to low, or low to high, or tier low to high, in this high to low. Can't even read. That is the way it is. But those are just a couple tips and tricks for you guys to kind of get around, start finding the items, really start cleaning things up. And I'm really happy they added that that sort and filter the shops. I'm drawing blanks on words. I really kind of hope that we see those kind of tools actually brought into the game for ourselves as well, because that'd be kind of nice if I could actually find exactly what I needed whenever I needed it. But we'll get there one day, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. But guys, until then, take care.